Hi, I'm Bob Ethington.
And I'm Nick Nicholas.
And this is From Akron and Beyond. Welcome, everybody, and we have a special guest on this episode that we're very excited to have in studio with us, and that's Mr. Floco Torres. Hey, Floco.
What's going on?
It's good to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
And, you know, we anyone who is hip to the current Akron music scene, going out and seeing bands play.
Young bands, not just...
Young bands. Not our bands, but young bands, right? We'll probably know who Floco Torres is because he's just a fantastic performer, a great songwriter, and man, you just really enliven any gig you play at. It's just always so cool to see you. I always feel privileged to be at one that you're playing. So
I appreciate that, man. Thank you.
This is going to be kind of a fact-finding mission
for all of us.
For all of us. So we'll all come out better for it, I'm sure, or wiser or something. But I guess my first question, I'm just going to ask some pretty general stuff. So where are you from originally?
I'm from Willingboro, New Jersey, South Jersey.
Okay,
yeah.
All right, okay. And then how did you make it to Akron?
I did sort of a triangle offense sort of situation. I left Willingboro, New Jersey when I was 19 or 20, and I ended up in Macon, Georgia, trying to chase the Atlanta hip hop dreams at that time.
I had seen Macon, so I thought maybe you were.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was supposed to end up in Atlanta. I learned as a 20-year-old Atlanta's very expensive, or I just didn't know what I was looking for. So I ended up in Macon with my grandparents, and then I was there for a decade where I met some Macon transplants that had actually moved to Akron, and I had worked with them for a while. So when they moved to Akron and I was looking for a new place to be, it just kind of made sense after visiting a couple other places, because it was kind of like, you know, you can make the big city jump, or you can try and find like a mid-sized place where you still enjoy living there and there's access to opportunities and things like that. So that was kind of how I ended up in Akron.
I think Malcolm Abram did a stint there in a newspaper in Macon.
Yep, he was at the Telegraph for a very long time. I didn't know Malcolm was he was the Macon iteration before I had gotten there. So it was like, they kind of call it like the last days, or they were calling it something strange, where it's like nothing was going on in Macon. And when I got there in 2008 was when there was sort of like a resurgence in the music and the arts scene. And I think he had been gone at that point for like 5 or 6 years. He had been in Akron for 5 or 6 years at that point. So I met Malcolm when I got to Akron.
Okay, that's
interesting.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
It's kind of a typical Akron thing. I mean, there's all these weird threads of connection and stuff. It's always amazing who you'll find out that you somehow know, you know, or you know, have a mutual friend or something. And, and it's like, you know, oh, wait, you know her? Whoa, well, you know, I went to school with her or whatever. I mean, it's funny that way. And, we're going to have Malcolm on at some point, too. Yeah, it'll be looking forward to that. So, okay, you're in New Jersey, then you go to Macon. Who are your earliest musical influencers or inspirations, maybe?
I feel like my earliest ones, if I'm honest, I can't name them, because if we look at like our upbringing, whatever was playing in my house was what were my actual early influences. So I'm sure there's like R&B and jazz and stuff that I heard, but like when I got into music as a teenager, it was the hip hop pillar names. You know, it was Biggie, it was Jay-Z, Nas, early Busta Rhymes, Tribe Called Quest, and stuff like that. But then I also had my uncles around me when they realized, they were like, oh, you're getting serious with this. Well, you need to know the pioneers. And that's when I learned about, you know, the Biz Marquis, the early Def Jam days.
Right.
They were playing me Rakim stuff that I wasn't really on my frequency at 16, you know what I mean? 15, 16, stuff like that. Chief Rocker, Busy Bee, just Grandmaster Flash, like all of that stuff. Like, as I got going, then my uncles helped me go back and see who inspired the guys that I was inspired by.
Yeah.
So it's really just I don't call myself a hip hop head because people will call you out on it. They'll be like, "What year did this 45 vinyl come out?" But I have studied as much of the culture as I can. So
yeah, and this like 50th anniversary thing that's been happening this last year has brought a lot of names back into the consciousness. I think, people that had been forgotten or maybe never known. I mean, it's a funny thing with music because it's like some music, like old rock music, to be frank, Beatles, Stones, stuff like that. That stuff kind of like lives on, and the people that are into that stuff. But a lot of music, including a lot of rock and pop and whatever, a lot of it's like new artists come so fast and things change so quickly that something that's 5 years old can almost seem like it's really old, and it's, to me, always odd because I just love to listen to old music, and sometimes I'm like, gee, I didn't realize this was old. It was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
I just got it yesterday,
And hip hop is I feel like hip hop is in a dope spot because we were never taught that hip hop was going to age. Aging in hip hop was kind of like a death sentence. Like if you didn't make it by the time you were 30, you need to be doing something else. And now being in the 50th year and still being educated on like really knowing the contributions of Marlon Morrow and DJ Kool Herc and things like that, and then seeing some of our heroes still make music at 45, 50,
right,
into their mid 50s. That was unheard of 10 or 15 years ago. So as I get older in hip hop, I'm kind of like, no, this is dope. Like no one's telling us to turn the mics off by 35 now. So that's cool.
I was really impressed with one of the groups you're in, Free Black, when during COVID, when the whole world shut down, and 5 or 6 of us, I guess, were honored to do a virtual porch rocker. And my band and your band were like, one after the other, I think. And, I really enjoyed that. Is that something you're still doing?
We haven't done any virtual performances. Knock on wood, we don't have to go back to them. But Free Black in general.
Yeah.
Free Black is still going strong. We just put out a live show album. October 4th, I believe that was, and people are really enjoying that because our show is very high energy and kind of raw. So having that in an album form now, if you can't make the show, you can kind of just put that on in your earbuds or like in the car, and it's still the same. It's still the same vibe. You know what I mean? So
how can one get that? I'd like that album.
That's on wherever you listen to music, Spotify, Apple Music, and everything. It is on our Bandcamp as well. If people are still into owning music,
that's us.
Yeah, it's on our Bandcamp page too. So
cool. All right, I'll definitely check that out. Well, speaking of old school hip hop or rap at the time, I guess, but a very legendary, famous show that happened at the Akron Civic Theater back in the early 1980s was The Clash played, the British punk band, and anyone who was there was blown away by it. But the opening act for The Clash was Curtis Blow.
What? I swear to God, that was a great show, man.
And on there's a funny photo of the marquee because his name's spelled C, but it was funny because that was early, but when the Clash, they kind of moved. They were British, but then they sort of moved to New York for quite a while, and they got real. Totally exposed and really turned on by all the music that was happening there, and so they brought in all kinds of
opening acts
and early dance hall stuff and hip hop type stuff, and so particularly on their last couple albums, that was an influence. You could tell, you could hear it.
Yeah,
but it was funny because no one, I would say, the vast majority of that audience, because they'd gone to see The Clash, had ever seen anything like Curtis Blow.
We weren't expecting that.
Yeah, with a turntable, and just the whole thing was just so new to people, and it is funny because it almost seems like something that would be out of a corny movie, but I remember like people at that show and they were like, well, it's okay, but it's such a gimmick. This will never last.
Yeah. No, but what's strange about that though is we're on another show. We're talking about weird experiences at our our lifetimes. Going to see shows, and one was they had comedians open up for bands. But the crowd at the Civic was very respectful. Curtis
they
Blow.
were.
I mean, it wasn't like they were leaving or
if you remember, Joe Strummer of the Clash came out before he played. Yeah. He came out and like introduced Curtis and was like, this is some cutting edge stuff and we love it, and you hope you love it too. And so I think people were like,
all right, I'll give it a shot.
Yeah. And plus he was intimidating, man. Remember he had the Travis Bickle Mohawk thing going, taxi driver thing going there. I remember just being almost afraid of him. So that was a great show. Everyone that was there.
I gotta look that up because I like the Clash. But I'm a very novice as far as a fan of them. I've learned more over the years. But I was just always a fan of the Board and the USA song. It was just like the balls of that. Right. Be like, I want to go home.
Bob, basically. Wouldn't you say that a bigger influence, of that kind of music crossing over was Big Audio Dynamite? They had more of a...
Well, yeah.
Mick Jones.
Was a guitarist for the Clash, or lead guitarist, and he definitely pursued that side of things with that band when the Clash broke up. Yeah. Anyway, so we were talking about inspirations. I just always wonder about that kind of stuff because as you mentioned, like the earliest stuff is really stuff that you're just surrounded by, like when you're a kid, right? I mean, so it can be what was on the radio, R&B, jazz, whatever. Can be church music sometimes. If your parents into that, right?
I was in the choir.
Yeah. And that seems to be always inspiring to people that did that, just because of the just the emotion of it, I think, and I'm not going to.
I mean, early ways of expressing yourself is the way that I look at it now. And then thinking of myself as a performer too. I played sports growing up. I played instruments growing up. Like I tried violin, I tried trumpet, drums. I hated everything because my mom always used to say, she was like, you like the idea of playing, but you don't want to practice. And that was
me.
It didn't feel.
I was going to say, it sounds like Nick.
Yeah, it didn't feel natural. I wanted to play sports. I wanted to be in the NBA and the NFL or whatever. But then looking back on all that stuff now, it kind of makes sense that I wasn't as afraid to be in front of people as I thought I would be.
Right.
Like it felt more natural than maybe it should at 16, 17 years old when I was jumping in these ciphers and stuff. But looking back at it now, and I was like, well, I played sports. I got the highs of scoring and got the lows of like being benched. So like you understand the two. Being in the choir and having a solo, or being in the youth church group and doing like the dances and stuff like that. Like we were always in front of people performing and sort of putting on some sort of show. Right. So I just look back at that now like, all of this was just little nuggets of things to get me to the stage, essentially. The same way wanting to be a journalist got me into writing. Right. That really made me fall in love with hip hop, because the lyrics is what I started with, and then the music I had to learn. So you know what I mean? I feel like it all, when we look back, it kind of all ties together in some sort of way,
That's when I first became aware of you as a writer in the Devil Strip. You were a contributor.
I was everything. At one point, towards like the end of my tenure there, I was like doing everything. Like if, the tracks needed to get taken out, it get taken out. If we needed to have a come to Jesus moment, I was the one being like, all right, let's get everybody in the room and talk about it and stuff. But yeah, I went to school I went to college for journalism for a little bit, and then I got a columnist job at the paper in my hometown, the Burlington County Times, which is no longer a thing now. And my young brain at that time was, well, if I'm going to school to get a job, I have one. So I just kind of dropped out. I was like, well, I'm a journalist now. That's, not really having the foresight to be like $50 an article is not going to be how you how you live. But I continue that throughout my time in Macon. I worked with the Telegraph for a little bit. I worked with the CCJ for a little bit, and then coming to Akron and being a part of the Devil Strip for I think like 4 of the 6 years that it was in existence. So
okay. if I'm correct about this, and I'm going to want to go into your actual recordings and shows and stuff, but I, as listeners, regular listeners to our show have gotten sick of hearing, I worked for the Akron Library. Mm-hmm. I was there for 35 years. And when the new main library opened, one of the things that we offered was studio space. You used that, didn't you?
Yeah. I still use it sparingly, and it's nothing against the studio. I think just at one point, maybe my being sort of like public in Akron and always playing out and stuff like that became most of my sessions at the studio would be people like knocking on the window, like, hey, you're Floco, right? Like that sort of thing. And it was like trying to get this record off. And then doing some promotion with the library, promoting the Tech Zone. Yeah. And being in the library magazine and stuff like that, it really became, this isn't just a random guy in there anymore. Like, let's go ask him questions. So I had to kind of pull back a little bit. But yeah, I used it a lot. I got here 2017 to 2019. I was probably down there 2 or 3 times a week, just working on records and stuff like that. So it's such a great resource.
Wow. Yeah, see, a lot of people don't know about that.
That's what I wanted to mention.
I got to I did an interview there with Jimmy Image a few months ago, and it's like, I mean, there's so much you could do there. People just, I don't know. Explain that a little bit.
Well, public libraries have, like everything else, have had to change, and so the idea of it as being a repository for books and magazines and things like that will always be a part of what the library does, but that's just not going to pull people in anymore. And so we offer, of course, all kinds of internet options and stuff, computers so people can get on, and training on that stuff. And at the main library, which is where I worked, I was the head of the culture and audiovisual department. So that was a lot of fun. But that was also kind of like an established part of what the library would offer, had offered for years. But our auditorium that we have at main library is fantastic. We've had a lot of great speakers and events there. The special collections department, which is all like archives and local history, is fantastic. And then the Tech Zone. Yep. And the Tech Zone is really amazing because they have, 3D printers, and people can come in with, vinyl records and digitize them, know, and stuff. Yeah. And there's staff there that, are happy to help you learn how to work stuff. And Floco, you were a celebrity there in the Tech Zone because the staff all loved you.
It was, and the staff is still great. I still use the micro business center, and I kind of use it selfishly now to try and have meetings with people because they don't know that it's there, right? And that it's like a one sheet for you to sign up. Like I think all you gotta do is have an LLC or something like that.
So you'd record your music at the library. So.
Yeah, I recorded. I think I recorded the verses to you there. I'm not sure. It's possible. I might have did like a couple of takes or something like that, but I did a lot of music from 2017 to 2019 because when we moved, we were waiting to get our internet set up at the house. And I was like, you just think, all right, well, let's find a library. We found the one downtown. I remember really liking the design of the building. And I was like, they cared about the design. That's cool. And we went in and just were using our laptops. And I looked over and I saw the studio, and I was like, nah, there's no way. Like this has to be like a student program or something. And I asked the folks at the Tech Zone desk, and they said, no, you just sign up. And I think I had a session maybe like the next week. I was like, no, I'm in there. It's a great resource. I've used the green screen there. I think we used the photo box one time. Right. Stickers.
Yeah, to do videos and stuff.
Yeah. Like it really is a great resource. And to your point about, public libraries, it is like everything else where it's just, there's only so much the staff can do with the budget that you have and those sorts of things. So it really is a word of mouth community thing. Like we have to take it upon ourselves to share these resources with people because you never know. And it's not even the 16-year-old that's trying to learn how to get into audio recording or podcasting or something. It could be somebody much older that this has always been a passion of theirs, and they need to know that these accessible resources are like right down the street. You know what I mean? So
the studios are like a smaller space. Like you couldn't take a band into it or whatever, but
it's there.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it was kind of perfect for what you were doing. And then you'll see guys in there like an acoustic guitar or whatever, that kind of a thing. But yeah, it's a nice resource, for sure.
You could go from 2 to 5 channels in there. I think. I think you can get the bare bones done, and then go to a bigger room and mic the drums up. You know what I mean? So.
Right. So, although it takes the technical expertise beyond me, I'm a drummer, and I like basically remain with the technical expertise of
others.
Yeah, like Gene Krupa.
No, I heard
Great
that.
drummer, but
yeah,
I don't know he would know how to use that studio. Well, this is From Akron and Beyond. I'm Bob Ethington with my co-host Nick Nicholas, and we have Floco Torres as our guest.
Yeah.
And just talking about his early days and some of his early recordings. And so what was the first tune you put out, first thing you put out?
Like ever?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh. There's two projects, and I don't remember which one was first. I think in 2006, I had an album called Another World, and I was still living in Bristol, Pennsylvania at the time.
Okay.
And there was a suburb close to there, Yardley, Pennsylvania. I don't remember where I met this gentleman from, but I met a guy. They told him I rapped and I was looking for a studio or something like that. And he had one of those just elaborate studios in his basement because he had been a musician forever, and I guess he toured for a while. So I kind of met this guy with no context of who he was and if I was going to get locked in this basement or not. I drove my Pontiac Grand Am over to his basement, and I did this whole album. It was my first time paying for studio time. Looking back on it, I think he knew I was wet behind the ears, and he knew that I didn't need most of the equipment that was in that room, but he was still charging me like I was using every instrument in that room. So there was that project, and then I had a project that I think is still on streaming services called From Then Till Now, and that was, I think, 2005 or 2006 as well. So I don't remember the song necessarily, but those two projects were like my first. I learned how to record an album. I learned how to put songs together.
Right.
And 2020 was when it was, because we all thought the world was going to end. So I started like listening to my older music. I was like, my career is over. That's it. And I remember going back and listening to the From Then Till Now album, and remembering learning how I made the album cover. I made it at a library. I didn't know what I was doing. And just listening to the songs and hearing that there was, I don't want to say talent necessarily, but there was a path there. Like I can, listening back to it 14, 15 years later, I was like, I think I was supposed to be doing this. It was rough around the edges, but that like I had clear thoughts and clear songwriting ideas, even at, I don't remember how old I was, but I was still in community college when I did that. So like 2005 or 2006.
There might be kind of a freshness to it that holds up. You know what I mean? I mean, a lot of times when you're doing that first stuff that you almost feel almost innocent, not really sure quite what you're doing. And then sometimes that kind of has its own charms, you know.
Yeah, it's really great listening to the story, you know, just like the DIY part of it, you know, doing your own record cover. And that's what we all did back in the 70s, you know, pasted our 45 covers together and, you know, went to these studios that were owned by friends and just, you know, we put it but it worked. And it's great it's still working, you know.
It was much more punk rock than I realized I was being at the time, because I didn't have any context for anything outside of hip hop really at that time. Anything outside of hip hop or R&B, I didn't really know much. And then, you know, pop music, whatever was coming on. But looking back on it, I was like, I just sort of had this, okay, I'm doing this. How can I figure it out? And if the people around me didn't know, I just went and figured it out. And it was never weird to me. And I kept that as I progressed in my career. Like it was just never weird to do those things. And then I learned about punk rock culture, and I was like, oh, this is rooted in hip hop as well. Like both of these cultures just rebelled against, oh, you got to do it this way, you got to do it that way. Now we'll take our audience and our ideas, and we'll go over here and we'll do it
ourselves.
And, yeah, and we'll have a dope time. And then now you've got FOMO because, you know, whatever disco or whatever y'all were doing over there is not as cool as how this feels or how this looks. You know what I mean? Right. So it was cool learning that and looking back on it now and being like, oh, okay, I was kind of punk rock a little bit doing some of that stuff. So.
Yeah, it's funny. My band Unit 5, our first 45 that we made, I remember we all got together and spent like a weekend putting these together because we had this like elaborate art, and it had a plastic bag and it had a sticker on it and stuff, and it was like, you know, it was like a little assembly line.
Yeah, burning CDs and selling somebody a CD and then running into them later and being like, yo, I got in my car and the CD wouldn't play. And then that's how you learned sometimes the processing speed on the computer you were using, it wouldn't actually burn the CD. Right. And you didn't know at the time how to turn the CD over and look at the lines to see that it actually worked. Yeah. Like learning all that stuff, because that was kind of scary being in the mall, coming back the next weekend to sell your CDs, and somebody you sold a CD to last weekend is like, no, I've been looking for you. You sold me a blank disc.
Oh, you know, that is funny because when Bizarros, all we did was, you know, was vinyl, and then we did our first CD 22 years ago. I got a call from one of the local record stores, and I thought, oh, man, they're ordering some more, you know. Somebody had bought the first one. It was empty. They was calling to get another copy.
That's the game, yo. We all had to learn it.
Yeah, yeah. But again, I think that's part of the fun. I always have good memories of that stuff. Yeah. And now, since we're talking vinyl and we're talking CDs and streaming and what have you, it's a challenge now to get your music heard, right? Probably a little less so for you now because you've got more of a name going. But I mean, I'm in a band with Jake Trombetta and Mike Wilkinson, and you know, we record these albums and stuff, and we put a lot of work into it. And then it's like we just, you know, like you were talking about Spotify, Nick, and it's like, you know, Jake will say like, oh, I got my, my receipt from Spotify, and it says I made 5 cents last year, you know, and so, how do you face that challenge? Like it's because I think we've talked about this on the show before, and I guess I'll be repeating myself, but it's like, since we're both older, we came from a time where when you put out a record, it had sort of, even if it was low rent, it had sort of a distribution to it. You know, there was a place that people would go, and here's new albums that are punk albums or whatever, and so you already had that framed, you know? And now it's like, I know so many younger guys who are in music, and I play with a lot of them. I'm honored to be able to do it. And they're so talented. There's so much talent out there. But you almost have to have a different mindset when you're doing this music, don't you? Of like, I'm putting it out there because I love what I'm doing. Yeah. And hopefully somebody will listen to it, or hopefully the right person will listen to it. But you're so much more involved in it now. I wonder about your thoughts.
I think it's that the one part of what you just said is always going to be there. Like, we have to love making it and doing it, and it's got to make us feel a certain way to put it out for people and hope that they enjoy it. Because if you don't have that part, I mean, we're kind of all wasting each other's time, right? Right. But the two things I'll say to the streaming is, I don't know how many of us really enjoy that this is what music has turned into as far as like a creator, but there is a portion of it where it's, the game is the game, and you've got to play it to a certain point. The part that I don't enjoy, I enjoy content. I don't enjoy content creation as much as I really don't care about the streaming thing. Like, I don't like that we all have to be like comedians and dancing in kitchens now and all of that to say, you know, listen to my song. Like, I don't enjoy that part. Right. But there's a version of that I have to do if I want people to hear my stuff, right? So, you know, it's not all of our favorite thing, but it has made music more accessible. And that's always going to be a good thing for people to just be able to pull up your songs. It's just on you now to get them to pay attention, and that's the that's the tough part. And I think I just saw this article the other day. I think Vox did it or something like that. And they were saying it was the death of the global superstar. And I thought that was really interesting when I read it, because I hadn't thought about that. Like, that sounds crazy when Beyonce is still a thing and Harry Styles or whoever.
Right.
But I understood what they were saying. It was like everyone is sort of that Andy Warhol thing. Like, everyone's getting their 15 minutes at the same time. So it's really about the individual connections and the small community experiences that you can make as an artist. So it may only be 10,000 people across the world that enjoy your music, but that's still 10,000 people with the ability for it to be 15,000, 20,000 if you keep at it.
Right.
So that's sort of been my mindset over the past, I want to say 5 to 10 years. Is like, I'm just sort of focused on who's enjoying and who we can bring along. And if the big bubble happens, that's great. Yeah. And if it doesn't, I'm always going to work to have an audience of people that we can kind of share these moments with. Yeah. And that's just sort of where I've decided to focus on. You know what I mean? My dreams of being signed to a record label are over. Yeah. My dreams of, I think I had the popularity dreams early on. I don't have that anymore. Anyone that has, I'm sure you guys know too, anyone that has been recognized in any sort of capacity for an extended period of time, you sort of want less of that. Like, the people that want more of that when they get a taste of it, I'm like, they're very strong individuals. When I started to get a taste of it, I was like, I can't imagine being chased through the mall or you know what I mean, people knowing the color of your bathroom walls or something like that. Like, that's not really what I'm in it for, but I understand it's a part of it. So I just, with the streaming and everything like that, I just kind of focus on my audience and who's listening, whether that be big to somebody or small to somebody. Like, that's not really my concern. Right. People are listening, so I'm gonna keep giving the best that I can give. You know,
that's a really healthy attitude. I
absolutely,
think, and a positive attitude. Oddly enough, Nick wants more and more fame, and he would love to be chased in malls. In fact, sometimes he actually shoplifts stuff just to get chased in malls.
Whether I need it or not.
I understand the drug of it. I do. I really do. And we all want to be acknowledged and recognized in some capacity, even if it's just from family members and friends and stuff like that. I think I grew out of that being a means to an end once you learned what went into it. Like, once you learned being chased through the mall, there's a lot of infrastructure that goes into making that artist that persona for people to see that and feel that through the music and then want to chase them through the mall. And once you saw that, it was like, you sort of saw what you were up against, or I saw what I was up against. And I was like, I'm one guy with the help of people along the way, battling a team with X amount of dollars that are planning out a year in advance.
Right.
You know, it just, the comparison of it just, it didn't make sense after a while. You know what I mean? And then being able to be recognized in your area or in your region and getting a bit of that. I was just in Oberlin the other day. I'm doing want to shout out to my homie Chris Coles. He is a professor there and a few other schools in the area. And the students were looking for a hip hop artist for one of their songs they're doing at a concert. And he said, I've got somebody, like, let's see if he's free. And I was like, of course, I would love to do this. And I go out there, and I've never been to Oberlin. So I'm walking around this small area and just thinking about all the small cities that I've toured in for like the past decade or so. And I was like, all these cities kind of look the same, but they make me feel the same. They make me feel connected to them because they're the last bit of design wise our country I feel like we're gonna have before they turn everything into these like Lego loft houses. So I'm like enjoying that, and I go in this restaurant and I'm sitting there just killing time, and this guy goes, "Hey Floco, what are you doing here?" And I was like, there's no way. And I talked to him for a second and he left, and I was just like, why does this guy in Oberlin know who I am? And it could be a number of things, right? It could be the summit, it could be he came to a show, I don't know, it could be Instagram, I have no idea. But like, that's cool enough for me that I get that. I can't imagine like you can't go to Target. You know what I mean? Like that's a wild concept to me.
Whenever somebody comes up, during a show or on the street or something, just mentions how they enjoy my lyrics or ask me something about what I wrote, it's just like 10,000 people saying, just one person means so much. I got to somebody.
Exactly. Like that's, and you know how it is. Once we put things out, we don't own it anymore. So
right.
People will come up and say things about records that I'm like, man, I haven't thought about that song intimately in a long time. Or you heard something in that lyric that I was not trying to say at all. But that's cool. So.
Right.
He probably did. You still don't know who that guy was at Overland, right?
No, I have no idea. And I think it looked like he was doing DoorDash, I think.
Oh.
So that made it even worse of like, or not worse, but just, where does he live? Does he even live out here? Like, does he live in Akron and he just got this random DoorDash in Overland? Like I have no idea. But.
Now I've mentioned, and again, anyone who's seen Floco in performance knows what a great time that is. You're
appreciate that.
Such an engaging performer. Now, how often are you playing out these days?
After 2020, I think like the peak of my career, I was doing about 70 shows a year.
Wow,
75.
Okay.
Traveling around too?
Yeah, that was more in the Southeast. I think, like I said, I got to Akron in 2017.
Yeah.
Kind of got my feet wet in Northeast Ohio. Started getting out to Pittsburgh and stuff like that, and then everything stopped, and then we had to sort of rebuild. So right now it's probably like 40, 45 or something
good,
like
though.
that. It's good, I think, for me. 10 years in the Southeast of like how much I was playing, and it kind of getting cut in half, and then sort of being nothing for a year and a half, 2 years.
Right.
I had to really do some soul searching of like, who am I as a person?
Right.
Because I didn't realize how much of my early 20s development was being in front of strangers, being known as this thing.
Right. Yeah.
And performing.
It's like your identity in a way.
Yeah. And then that being taken away, I had to really be like, okay, who am I from Thursday to Sunday? Because I have no idea what that is. Like, what do I actually like doing? Do I have hobbies?
Right.
that sort of stuff. So the shows are starting to pick back up a little bit, but I'm trying to keep that in mind of my identity does not have to be that I'm this thing all the time.
Right.
Monday to Friday, of course, but then on stage Thursday to Sunday. Like that, there can be a weekend where I don't know, watch basketball.
Yeah, right.
Now, is this the performances as solo or with a group or?
So solo and Free Black as well.
So two different groups. Two things going on.
Two different things going on. For early on in the Free Black inception, I was mixing the two, so but it was mainly just because we didn't have enough music to play a 30-minute set because all our songs are like 2 minutes. So I still had to play Floco's songs until we built up enough of a cachet, and it's like, okay, now Free Black is its own thing.
Yeah. And
then my solo stuff took the back burner a little bit once Free Black got going because people were just really into what this thing is. And I've never been in a band before that wasn't a Floco situation.
Right.
So it was my first time being like, oh, I don't have to make all the decisions. Like, there's another person that I have to consider. When I had a band, I was like, I'm booking shows. This is how much you're getting paid.
Right.
And, I'll set everything up and we just go play.
Yeah.
So Free Black has been more of the brunt of the shows. But I'm getting back into solo stuff, working on the next Floco album. So there will be more Floco shows in the future, I think.
Okay, cool. This is From Akron and Beyond. I'm Bob Ethington with my co-host, Nick Nicholas, and we are with our guest, Floco Torres, and talking about the challenges now of the music business and having a career in the music business. What do you see as being like maybe the biggest challenge to you right now in terms of career or creativity or just anything, really?
I'll say creativity wise, my collaboration pool is much smaller than it has been over the course of my career, just from my solo work. Like I was always locked in with a particular producer, and it would kind of be like eras. Like there was the Shawty Slim era, there was the G-Man Fantastic era, there was I was doing records with Vibes, there was the IQ era. So I always didn't have to sort of take most of the work. Like at the very least, the production was coming to me, and then I could kind of compose in that way. These days, I'm doing a lot more production by myself. I'm doing a lot more. I'm still doing all my album covers. I'm still doing the content. I'm still doing all that. So creatively, I think there have been walls I've run into where which hat do I put on today? What do I need to do in the studio today? So I'm trying to get out of that. I think that's a big challenge creatively. And then just business wise, continuing to try to expand in a way that makes sense to me. Like I don't have a day job. Like this is what I do. So you have to make sure.
Good for you.
Yeah.
I mean
it. we've tried for like 60 years.
Never worked.
You go through phases. Like I still do some consultation work and things like that. I think creatives these days, like living a creative life, you have to figure out how to, at times, monetize things that you do for free that people make 6-figure salaries doing every single day. Like when you realize how many people you talk to and help them problem solve something for their business. Yeah. And they walk away and they say, thanks, man, I owe you one. And they never actually owe you one. So there are times where there are things that I do, but I don't have I have to be here from this time to this time, and they take taxes out of my check. I don't have that. I'm not going to say I haven't tried. I have thought about it, and I was like, I can wait tables again. And then I go to a restaurant, and it's like, there's no way I can. There's no way. I'll do whatever I got to do. I'll start playing acoustic guitar, but I'm not doing that.
Busking.
Yeah, I'll figure it out. I will figure it out. But
do you have where I keep thinking to put this question is, do you have another set of ears, or do you have somebody that you trust that you have listened to your stuff, like before you send it out to anybody else?
Yeah, some of those producers I named, I actually talked to Slim right before I was on the way here this morning. I recorded a couple songs recently over the weekend, and I sent one of them to him, and he's gotten more into video production and things like that, and he's been on tour in that way doing videos and stuff, but I still know his musical ear, and he knows kind of where I want to go. So I sent him a record, and it was I think the song's like 3 minutes and 20 seconds, and in 2023 that is the longest song of all time for whatever reason. So the first thing he said, he was like, he likes the song, he likes the beat, the 808, so on and so forth, and he was like, I feel like one of these verses, he pretty much was saying like, the third verse needs to come out, the second verse needs to be the third verse, and then the drums need to come in sooner. And all I heard was like, so this song needs to be 2 minutes and 15 seconds. So I was like, okay. So yeah, I still send records out and just, let me know what you think about this. And then sometimes I don't. Sometimes I'm just getting better with trusting myself and one of the good things about streaming and Bandcamp and all of that stuff is putting this record out doesn't have to be the end of it. Like I'll do a version 2 and a version 3. I'll upload it to Bandcamp, realize I don't like the mix 2 days later, we go remix it, and I'll just go replace that file. Like we do have that control of it doesn't have to be as finite digital wise.
Well, that is interesting. I never thought of it that way.
Me neither.
Yeah, because obviously,
see, we're thinking the old school way.
Yeah, that you create that's the perfect version. Everything's exactly right, and that's a good approach to be able to do that.
Yeah. I'm taking them down. Like if I don't like it, I'm taking it down. The streaming services, you have less of that control, but wherever I have that control, I will replace a file in a heartbeat, and y'all will not know. I will go fix that kick. And
you'll know.
Yeah. I was like, no, it's better now. It's better.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if Dylan had that kind of a
man
changing all
change
his lyrics
because he never likes any of his recordings. So there'd be even more bootlegs out there. If that's imaginable. What future projects do you have online right now? Like, you said you are recording a new album?
Yeah, so I'm working on the next Floco Torres album. It's called This Creative Life, and it is the conversation that we've been having. Essentially, the songs are right now comprised of just trying to bring people into the world of what does creative life look like when it's not the level that people think is success.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there are people that are still, you guys, everybody at the summit, like living a creative life. And there's a lot of things that go into it that people don't know. So that's sort of what the album is about, is just trying to chronicle up to this period in time of being from 17 to, you know, how old I am now. So that's the next solo album. You know, Free Black is probably going to release something next year.
Okay, cool.
As well. And just, again, knock on wood, if we can keep playing shows, we're going to try to, we start off the year with a few gigs out of town, Pittsburgh, Chicago. So we're going to try and hit the ground running next year.
Yeah. So. That's probably how you make most of your money, is playing shows?
Yeah, it's an amalgam of things now. Like it's like I do, when was it? I think it was 2020 I finally broke even on streaming. Like all the money you spend to put streaming up and ads and all of that. Like I remember doing the math and I was like, it took 10 years, but I finally am making money from Spotify. So I do make a little money from streaming. Shows are the biggest one. Merch is the biggest one.
Sure.
And then people that support us on Bandcamp or you know, buy directly from the website or something like that. That's where a lot of it. That's where a lot of it comes from.
Yeah.
And then
because that's definitely a huge phenomenon that's changed in me and Nick's in our day.
We don't understand any of it.
Well, because I mean, if you love a band, go see them, or if you love an artist, go see them, because that's where they're going to make their money.
Buy their merch
and buy the merch, buy the shirts, or you know, even if they're. I'm a sucker for that. I always buy his CD or album or whatever by almost any show I go to, just because. You know, I know that's such a big part of the revenue now to keep going, keep doing it.
I tell them to keep the CD now because I don't have anywhere to play it. But I'm like, is it streaming? And they're like, cool. And it's like, I'll pay for the CD and then sell the CD to somebody else, but I'll make sure I go stream the album and stuff like that. So you get the best of both worlds or whatever. Because for a while I was just taking the CDs and I was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this. There's nowhere I can play this. But I just go over to the merch table and I'm like, how can I give something? You know what I mean? So it's still, we were talking about something earlier. It's still that part hasn't changed. If you go see the live show and you buy something at the merch table, that's going to be more valuable than most other ways to support artists. And the bonus is tell somebody else about it. You know? So.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Hey, thank you so much for being here, man. It's great to
get
to
for
know
having
you.
Me. I appreciate it.
And again, I guess I've said it at least twice, but I'll say it one more time. If you see that Floco Torres or Free Black are playing somewhere where you can get to and go check them out, absolutely do, because you'll be in for a good time and a thought-provoking time too. Your lyrics are good, man.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I've always really enjoyed seeing you live. So keep that up.
I appreciate you.
So this is From Akron and Beyond. I'm Bob Ethington with my co-host Nick Nicholas. Our guest has been Floco Torres, and thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next time.